Hello and welcome everyone that is joining our webinar today. I'm Cheryl Gillihan with Cause Labs.
I'm TJ Cook, also with Cause Labs.
We are a socially conscious innovation firm specializing in creative technology, innovation, and solutions. And so today we're going to be talking to you about the first step in that. Let me go ahead and start sharing my screen here, and we will share these slides afterwards. And we will
wait for some people to get in, huh?
Yes. And then we will also give you a link to where these slides are living later on. Is it working? Excellent. Are you able to see the chat, TJ, as well as anybody that might be joining the webinar?
I think so.
Okay, you won't see them if they're in YouTube. Welcome to those that are joining us for the live stream. If you are joining us via Google Hangouts, you can actually use the chat, and TJ will be monitoring that, and we can answer questions that way. So innovation. Every innovation starts with a problem. Today we'll focus on refining that problem statement. And if you go ahead and think now about your organization and the problems that you're facing, either as an organization or with your constituents, think about that now, because we'll ask you to write that down later. You don't necessarily have to share it with us, but write it down and we'll help you refine that. The first thing is recognizing that change is needed. Problems are statistics, and once you know what those statistics are, the challenge is actually knowing how to change those statistics. So for example, we have a project we recently did, and I'll let TJ tell that story.
So yeah, I mean, in this case, we're working with a really great firm called Engage Public, and they help municipalities and leaders engage their constituents, and they were really roping their minds around this problem: the low number of citizens who actually understand the city's budget or the federal budget. But that's a statistic. That's the problem. But the problem statement needs to really be more centered around, okay, what might we do about it? What can we do about it? And so we came up with this problem statement. How might we build trust and empower our leaders by giving citizens a voice throughout the budgeting process? How might we build trust and empower our leaders by giving citizens a voice throughout the budgeting process? So yeah, the rest of the webinar is sharing examples like this and show you how we actually put these together. Take it away, Cheryl.
So we have some real world stories, things from history that you might actually know about, as well as some projects of our own that we've done. And if you've partnered with us, you have your own problem statement probably that we've worked on and collaborated together. So take just a moment and draft a problem statement from the previous slides when I asked you to think about a problem that you're having either internally or externally. And we'll give you a formula for that. So it starts with how might we, and then the idea or concept of what you might want to try to do about it in order to, and an action so that you can create some sort of impact. Again, this can be internal or external.
So if you're, it's a campaign year, if you're looking at how to engage constituents, you can think about the human level of that problem. If you are a human services nonprofit and you're looking to engage, solve operational issues with the program you run, or if you feel that there's a need for a whole new program that's helping people in a whole new way, this format can actually help you with iterative innovation or transformative innovation, right? It's not restricted just to one specific type of problem.
Yes. So we're going to share another example in just a moment of what an ideal problem statement might look like. And it takes some iteration to get to this ideal problem statement. So wait just a moment for the slides to change. This is a project that we worked on called Reading in Motion, and TJ will share the problem statement here.
Yeah, so we worked with a really great firm out of Chicago called Greater Good Studio on this work with Reading in Motion. And through the discovery process, those initial phone calls, those initial meetings, we came up with this: how might we? How might we better deliver our programs and mentorship to a growing number of teachers in order to improve literacy in underserved schools so that more children are reading at grade level? So there's a lot in there, right? But trust me when I say it's, a process of refinement to get to this level. But you can see here, what I really love about this is the so that, we're ending with the fact that what we really want to do here is more children reading at grade level. And that's super important for your problem statement to round out and focus on the human level part of the problem. Obviously, you can see a business model, need here too. Growing number of teachers, their programs starting to get taxed, their the cost effectiveness of spinning up new schools was an issue. So you see that in here, but I can't stress enough how important it is to focus, in this case, literally on the children.
Mm-hmm. And so the reason I asked you to write down your problem statement or idea or anything around your challenge that you're dealing with right now is because writing it down can spark new innovation and new ideas. We have an internal program that weekly our team gets together and we talk about ideas that we may have or problems that we're either challenged with in our own lives or that we see happening out in the world. I encourage you to write everything down. Nothing is a bad idea. In fact, if the slide will change pictures here, we have a picture of Thomas Edison, who had over 1,000 patents, but Thomas Edison died leaving about 3,500 notebooks just full of ideas. So you don't get to be like Thomas Edison.
I only have 10 notebooks myself.
And the wisdom and innovation that he brought to the world without capturing those ideas. And, I think he also said, I didn't fail 10,000 times. I actually found 10,000 ways that wouldn't work and one way that succeeded. So that's not a direct quote. I know it quotes something like that. But it's just a great example of how one idea can lead to another idea. Even a bad idea can lead to a really great idea. And we've seen that in our internal work as well. You
really never know. It's those later collisions of idea 1 with idea 72 that you would have forgotten about, would have not seen. And so write down every iteration of the problem statement. Use that as your anchor, but the ideas can really grow out of it.
Yes. So I would encourage you, once you write down your problem statement, to continue revisiting that and refining that problem statement. There's a story that I read recently, and I've known the story before, but reading in a book and hearing the iterations of how things changed for this story really inspired me, and so I've included it here. Virginia Apgar was an anesthesiologist in the 60s, and the problem that she was tackling is that there was a high rate of infant death. And so her initial statement probably would have been, how might we change anesthesia in laboring mothers so that we reduce infant death? She approached it from science and data and what she knew and what she understood in the work that she was doing. But the anesthesia and the changes that she made didn't result in lower deaths. And so she had to refine her problem statement and focus more on the infant than she did on the laboring mother. And I'll continue this story throughout the slides here to share more about where she landed. And if you know the story already, then you know that this is still used today. One example that we've been working on is a problem statement where we had both an internal and external sort of focus.
And this gets back to that, we tell a story of really refining that here. So first draft was really around discussions I had with Ross Barrett over at Village Capital, which, by the way, is an amazing organization. Go to vilcap.com to learn more. But I'll use an analogy to TED, the TED conference, which was a yearly conference in California, but they knew that this way of storytelling and highlighting people's stories needed to spread, so they started TEDx. Well, sitting with Ross, we realized, there's a way that Village Capital's program could go from 10 programs a year to 40 programs a year, and we're really excited about that. So here's my first how might we help Village Capital grow impact from 10 programs a year to 40 programs a year. Problem with this, though, what do you see, Cheryl? What's missing, right?
The "so that" statement.
Right. Who's the human, right? Where's the impact? What kind of impact? So we really worked on this in our initial, lab day process, which we get into in subsequent webinars, but it became, how might we allow any social entrepreneur anywhere in the world to accelerate their growth with the Village Capital Communities program? So boom, you really see that entrepreneur and the fact that they have ideas and they have enterprises ready to go. They just need acceleration. That really came into the focus of the problem statement and helped us throughout that project, which recently launched, to really solve their problems and not the business model problems. Does that make sense?
Yes. So you'll notice the statement doesn't follow the formula exactly, but all of the elements are there. The formula just helps you think about those various elements. In this case, it's so that the social entrepreneur is empowered to accelerate their business. All right, so the next lesson in iterating on your problem statement is to do it quickly, to allow those ideas to flow. Again, to make sure that you're capturing everything, writing things down, doing the research that you need to, and learning from that research so that you can shift and change as needed. Learn from your experiences and from the data. In Virginia Apgar's example that I gave earlier about the infants, and I said how she had to shift towards focusing on those infants rather than on the mothers. In her case, the how might we statement then probably looks something like, how might we assess an infant after they're born so that we can prevent deaths?
You never know where it's going to lead you, but you have to start and then iterate quickly to keep going and take you where the learnings take you.
Right. And then the next step is to do some interviews. Listen, observe, talk to your audience, and also listen to what they don't say. So we've got an example from a project that we did in the Philippines that talks a little bit about, the interview results and hearing the cultural things that the users didn't necessarily say when we were interviewing them, but we caught on to it because we were in the field with them and seeing it happen.
Yeah, and this is, empathy is huge. Here you see a picture of Jonathan, who's a cause lever on the left, but working with our partner, IDEO.org, and John Wan there, lead on the project. Little shout out there. But basically, they spent time in people's homes, and there's nothing like actually going to a person's home and learning really the true person level, not a statistic in a project you're working on, but human to human connection. Basically, when they interviewed, they were working on a mobile banking savings project to rebuild economic security after the wake of Typhoon Haiyan. So they asked, hey, share what you want and need about the concepts we have here, and they brought concepts to them. Would you use this type of service? Would you use this type of mobile app or something like that? But in between what they did say in response to that question, they really picked up on this lack of this general mistrust of banks, which they were able to really use to, and that type of a nuance just had amazing implications for what they then ended up designing. So it's a good example of why we have to then take that problem statement and then ask, who's experiencing it? What can we learn?
Yeah, so it's really important to get that feedback, and it's important to get it early on. So as you're identifying what your problem statement is and recognizing what possible solutions are, some of us want to hold that very close to our chest because we're afraid. we're afraid that if we put it out there, it's not quite refined enough yet, or maybe there's the fear of that idea being stolen, or maybe there's a fear that something already exists. But the fact is, if it's solving a problem, it's something that needs to exist, and who better than you to do that?
Yeah.
So get it out there early and get your concepts tested by users and get that feedback. Again, going back to Apgar's story, she was interviewing nurses and doctors and realized from getting the feedback that there is no standard for assessments, or there wasn't in the 60s, standards for assessments. So depending on who your doctor was, they would assess the baby after it was born. But each doctor had their own standard for what was considered healthy. And so even creating an assessment at that time would not have worked because there were no standards for what was healthy. So part of that, Virginia Apgar being a doctor as well, was she needed to get really uncomfortable and critical of her own field of work. We have to be able to put that lens on ourselves and get really uncomfortable and realize that we don't have it all figured out. And there are sometimes...
You mean you're gonna step on my toes, Cheryl?
Yeah, just a little.
All right. I'll put on my steel toe boot.
There are sometimes some systemic problems there that need to be changed before you can actually create innovation. So do be critical of your own processes in order to find innovation, and allow other people as well to advise you. Seek advice. Even kings had advisors. So, it's really important to hear what other people have to say. When you are... The slides are a little bit laggy, so I will pause for just a second. When you are coming up with concepts and ideas, and you are looking at your problem statements and seeing how that relates to the challenges, it may not always make sense. There are some innovations that you don't realize until it's out there in the world. So the story that I would like to share is one actually about, let me look up her name. I'm sorry, I've forgotten her name. Stephanie Kwolek. Sorry about that. Stephanie Kwolek. She was fascinated by fashion and by science. And so she put those two things together and actually started working for DuPont, creating threads. And they were looking for a more resilient thread, something that could be used in tires. And so she set to work on this and did some things that didn't make sense, processed the threads in ways that no scientist had done before. She just wanted to test things out. She continued to iterate. She continued to test. And what she ended up with was a very resilient, strong, steel strength thread that's now used in Kevlar. So she didn't create this innovation looking for bulletproof vests. Ford didn't say, I want to create cars. Cars didn't exist. There are lots of innovations out there that are used for things that are brand new that we could not have even imagined or dreamed about. Yeah.
So. In a more closer to our world example, think about Instagram. That was just a feature of a more comprehensive what's going on with you type of app. And they, by releasing, by iterating, by learning, they realized that the photo sharing thing hadn't been solved, so they actually just wiped out all the other features and they really focused on this one. So building is a form of planning. I like to say that, right? That the act of putting the problem statement out there, generating ideas around it, and then iterating on those, and again, letting the innovation take you where the learnings do is really amazing. But it all starts with this problem statement. It's how might we?
Yes.
And yeah, I just want to say that the how might we, the specific phrasing of it, we've shared some examples. don't be religious about that, but do be religious about one thing, and that is the human level problem. We got to solve problems worth solving. We have to devote our innovation energy to the problems that matter and will make a difference in people's lives. So, that's what Cause Labs is all about. But that's also, it's going to have business implications, right, Cheryl? Because if you get a team involved, whether you're inside your organization, outside your organization, if you can share with them the problem statement, and that problem statement is human-centered, no matter who's going to have to be involved in helping you, they're going to resonate with the human level piece of it. Not so much on the business level of like, let's increase profits X% or whatever. That stuff is important, but it has to be built out of this very human level problem worth solving type of focus. So I hope you guys have gotten that out of some of these stories and some of the, some of the tips we gave. We do have an upcoming webinar, and while I'm talking about this one, Cheryl will let you all know about the next. There we go. I'm going to stop presenting. You see our lovely faces again. Hello. Next webinar is going to be in May, and you're going to be able to actually join us for that at the conclusion of this webinar. But we're going to be zeroing in on empathy. How can we empathize? We talked about Jonathan, John Juan, IDEO.org, and the project in the Philippines doing in-home interviews. We'll talk about some other ways, some less expensive ways of doing that. And yeah, Cheryl, go and put in the link to our Medium page where we're blogging about this. We're writing a series of articles about this process and specifically the flavor of it that we use at Cause Labs. So if you go to medium.com/@causelabs, you'll see an article, actually 3 articles now, and there will be 12 in total, and one specifically on empathy and what I call guerrilla empathy, empathy on a budget, if you will. Most of the great people we work with don't have infinite budgets to do whatever, and so it takes a lot of creativity and strategic thinking. My wife is actually a wonderful source of empathy for me because she's not on the team, but she knows she can resonate with the human level problem statement, right? And she can respond to it from a different way.
She gives you great advice.
Great advice, fantastic advice. And so friends, loved ones, family, but then going beyond that to more specific people, not just people who aren't you, but people who are acutely experiencing the problem, and how do we go after that? So that'll be our next webinar.
So I've inserted a few links if you're joining us in Google Hangouts. On the left-hand side, I've also shared a link to the slides, and I will post this on YouTube in the comments so that you can access those. Thanks so much.
Great. Yeah, no, we have a few minutes. Cheryl and I will stay here if you wanted to do a little Q&A, ask a question. Hey, anybody there that actually drafted a problem statement and want to share it, please do that as well. Otherwise, we really appreciate your time and a little window into our process. And live from NTC this year. It's a really great technology conference. About 2,000 people here. Lots of good energy. Good people solving lots of important problem statements.
I wonder if people are able to speak up. Do we have to do something?
I don't think so. I don't. But anywho, let's go and let's high five. Boom. We'll talk to you all later. We'll be on the chat if you want to chat on the Google Hangout chat once this is live. Thanks for joining us. Hope you join us next time. And hello from us, from Cause Labs family to you.
Have a great day.